All right, it's 9 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there a second? All right, any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Agenda is now approved. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 25th meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the September 25th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting minutes are approved. I also want to say thank you to Randy for putting the minutes together. And as we move forward, one of the things we have to address is, I know we've been kind of sharing the duty of taking meeting minutes. I need some help. So anybody that can volunteer, whether you want to do it on a permanent basis or we do it on a case-by-case basis as meetings go forward, I need a volunteer to take minutes for today's meeting. Are there any volunteers? Bob? All right, Bob, thank you. All right, so Bob, you are responsible for minutes for today's meeting. Thank you.
Not permanent.
Yeah, we can rotate. I mean, you know, it's just as long as we get it. And the fact that the meetings are recorded, if you miss something, you can always go back and look at the video and add that to the meeting minutes. All right, so thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Ready? Floor is now open for public comments. See, we have a visitor here today, I guess.
I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Seeing no public comments, I will close the floor for public comments and move to the next item on the agenda, which is the status of required committee reports. I wanted to report that in the third week of September, per our governing documents, we sent the budget guidance to the GM and the board that we had gone looked at, so on and so forth. So we met the requirement of submitting the budget guidance for the upcoming FY 25-26 budget. The second report is our annual report from the committee. We submitted that 2 weeks ago, and we also included information from former committee members whose terms had expired, and that would be Dick Kylig, Brian Reynolds, and George Soliak. And so they also took a look at the report before we submitted it, the draft report, and therefore they agreed with everything, added a couple of things, but that report was also submitted. It was due, or it is due, by October 31st per our governing documents. But just FYI that we have already submitted that report to the appropriate folks. So next item on the agenda is to review and discuss September financials. As we've done in the past, we'll go page by page, and we will take a look at each one of the items on the agenda. So on the all right, so on the okay, you got all right. So for any questions on the first page, noting the positive operating variance for September of $49,605. Okay, next item is the operating account summary. Any comments, questions on that one? I had one. I noticed that the expenses were about $106K over budget, but we were still $484K to the good year to date. I don't know if that is just something that was timing for this particular month, but it was noted that the if you look down at operating expenses under amenities, it was 106,000 over the budget projection. So expenses were a little bit higher. Don't know exactly what caused that. I know John and Steve, depending on how things are received and when they're received, will apply certain transactions based on timing. So it might just be a timing issue from a previous month. But unless there's any other question on that, I'm going to forward that as a question to John and just see if there's anything that we need to be concerned with. Any other questions on operating account summary? All right, the next item is the operating results. I didn't see anything there. Anybody else have the any questions, comments on that particular page? Okay. Next page is net operating by department. It's really, if you think about it, it's kind of a fascinating report, and it really shows the variances, especially when you go month to month. As you look through some of the operating variances and they change. I looked at last year's reports as well, and they're actually somewhat consistent. It's just an interesting trend that gets repeated year to year. But in any event, were there any questions on net operating by department? And I've also noticed that the year-to-date actuals are 6.1. The year-to-date last year was 5.8, so a little bit ahead, probably about 300K. The next page is, towards the better part of it because it shows the expense side of it on the operating summary. And are there any questions or comments there? I had one that just noticed, we looked at it, the net operating year-to-date actual 6.1, as I just mentioned, and year-to-date last year was 5.89. That's a $250,000 increase in net operating, which I think is on the good side. Shows that things are running pretty well. Anything else on the operating summary, net operating summary? Okay, next page is pickleball. Any notations on that particular report? I have a comment, but I'll wait until we look at all three of them. Next one is tennis. I noticed that in tennis under revenues, remember dues, they weren't projecting any revenue in that, and they actually were 380 to the good. So I just wondered if that was again just some new people moving into the area, or just folks deciding that they wanted to start to use the tennis facility. And I also noticed if you look at tennis under wages and benefits, you look at a $2,300 difference between the wages and benefits. It's actually under by $2,344. So interesting. Don't know if it's noteworthy yet, but just something that kind of stuck out when I looked at it and said, hey, maybe there's some more efficiencies that have been gained in that area. But at the end of the day, and of course, if you really wanted to nitpick, look at other costs. It was scheduled to be $42 for in the budget, but it was $1,026 in actuals. So one of the questions would be, what's in other costs under tennis? Is there anything and we're talking about small change here. I don't like to nitpick too much. Just I absolutely believe that there's a very reasonable explanation for something like that. But when you see a variance like that, even if it's a small number, I look at the percentage of the variance, and maybe just something came up that they needed to address in tennis that we don't know, and I'm sure it's very easily explained. Any other questions on the tennis report?
Quite a
Randy?
big increase in miscellaneous revenue. Good.
Yeah. And again, it's those kinds of things where, having done this for both in professional life and obviously here at the Ocean Pines environment, is a lot of unexpected costs come up and things that are unexpected. That the budget is a projection, obviously, of what I don't call it best guess, but it's based on the experience and understanding of how the operation runs. It's a number that you believe is very reasonable with regard to that operation. And when you get a little bit more revenue, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just again, this condition came up that maybe again more people did some things that obviously contributed to that. Anything else on the tennis? All right, let's move to platform tennis. Again, I didn't see anything outstanding. Any questions or thoughts there? So what I wanted to say was, year to date, the racket sports, all three of them are trending better than they did last year. I don't know if that's an indication of a more efficient operation from a cost perspective or increased membership. It's probably both, but I think that's a very good sign that the tennis or the racket sports environment is running very, very well. So John and his team that he has over there obviously are doing the right kinds of things to meet the needs of the community. All right, next report is aquatics. Any questions on that? Yeah, I tend to focus on the year-to-date numbers. And it's, it's a little bit, the actuals for year to date are a little bit lower, obviously about $23,000 lower than the year to date numbers from last year. And is that something that, we really need to concern ourselves with? If you look up at the member dues, it was about $1,700 less. And then I think the big one was daily fees, was down $6,100. And is that reflective of something that, needs to be looked at? I don't know. It's just a number, and I'm just wondering if that's something that we ought to ask and get a better idea as to what, what needs to be done there or what's causing that. Maybe it's just, fewer people are using the pools, and that's certainly something that obviously can be explained away with regard to, the idea of people, not using the pool as much, whether they're out of town and so forth, or we have less visitors coming into town. So anything else on aquatics? And overall, it's fairly consistent with the last year. All right, next one is combined golf operations. Oh, before I go any further, my mistake. Don Netarostek has an excused absence. He did let us know. He let me know that he's going to be out of town, and I wasn't going to be able to make the meeting today. But he did send me two questions, and I'll introduce them when they come up. It's a little bit further back in the report. So just for the for sake of the minutes and everything, Don had an excused absence. Combined golf ops. All right, that report. Any questions, comments on that one? I have a note that the net ops is 90K better than the year-to-date numbers from last year. I think that's terrific. Of course, I'm not going to be playing golf for a while.
Golf is doing very, very well.
Yes, golf is doing very, very well. Well, actually, I'm a member, so it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that's a testament to the work that Bob Beckelman and John and his staff have done over there too, making it a sort of starting to become I don't want to call it a destination golf course, but certainly more attractive than it was in the past. Any other questions, comments on combined golf ops? Okay. Next item is the clubhouse grill. Any questions, comments on that one? We're year to date, we are a little bit under that we were last year, which actually, if you think about it, if we're getting more play on the golf course, but we're down on revenue or actually net operating costs at the clubhouse grill, so sounds like a little bit of an inconsistency, But it's not a big number. It's just interesting more than anything else. All right, any questions on the clubhouse? All right. Next item is the beach club. Pretty straightforward. That's a pretty consistent environment. Any questions, thoughts, comments? My note is the revenues are actually up 30K from year to date last year, and net operating is up 36K. So I just don't know. I mean, I'm assuming we have more people using the parking lot there at the facility, but if you also look at wages and benefits, were down by about $2,000, and the supplies were down $3,000. So that was on the expense side. So that was pretty interesting. But nevertheless, that continues to be a pretty good amenity resource and a source of income, because clearly 35K better than year to date last year. Obviously, people are attracted to the beach club, which kind of leads into the next one, beach parking, which is pretty straightforward. Any questions on that one? Yeah, net operating is actually a little bit better, actually 17K better than last year, but comments there, looks pretty straightforward. They're in line with the past. All right, next one is the yacht club. Any questions and comments on that one? Yeah, I noticed that net operations is down about 110K from last year. And whether it's increased costs of, goods, foods and services and that kind of stuff, which there is some noticeable increases in in food and beverage on cost of sales. Other costs were up about 25K. So I just, it's interesting. I wish I could put my finger on exactly what that is. But how many weekends did we lose to the weather and those kinds of things all kind of tie into it. But overall, I think it's about, again, my other note here is what is the 82K overage in other costs? If you look at that, number, if you look at other costs under expenses, if you go year to date, year to date actual on other costs was 373, but the budget said 291. So what was the 82K in other costs? So that's a pretty significant number. And again, I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but without detail, that's kind of what I looked at. Any other questions on that one? All right, next item is the marinas, which is I will tell you, I don't know if it's gas prices going up, but if you look at the not only this particular what's interesting is if you look at the revenue for the month, it was down 30K. Just look at the total revenues for the actual versus the budget. And but yet year to date, if you look at net operating, we are what $48,000 higher in net operating year to date this year than we were last year. So I guess you'd have to put your thinking cap on and go do that. You go back and probably look at the previous month's reports, and see where the big increase in revenue was in the May, June, July, and August time frame, which has probably made up a lot of that that increase.
Fuel sales. What's the price of gas this year?
Yeah. He negotiates a price for the entire season, I believe. Ron Fisher does. And then that gets, and so, I'm assuming, and maybe we need to ask, in that if he has to refill the tank for the year, that he fills it at the same rate. In other words, it doesn't, even though the prices may go up contractually, unless he's only contractually meant for so many gallons. In other words, I'll sell you 100,000 gallons at $3 a gallon, but the next 50,000 is going to be at $3.50 a gallon, kind of thing.
The prices where I buy it has changed significantly during the season. Up 15-20%.
Really?
For a while there, and then they drop back down a little bit.
Huh. Well, I mean,
all free gases, it kind of goes like that.
Right. And of course, I don't know if he's, depending on the new administration that comes in, I don't know if it's gonna have any effect on his ability to, to negotiate fuel prices for next season. But that'd be an interesting discussion. But overall, if you look at it, we're doing very well at marinas. So despite the fact that, the month of September wasn't, as far as revenue goes, wasn't that good. We must have obviously made those numbers good. And
It closed that operation up sometime this month.
Boy, you're right, Frank. I wish I knew exactly which date, but I believe they're still open, aren't they? Is the marina still open?
Yes. Well, I don't know.
Let's find out.
Heard somewhere.
Yeah, because they'll close it off at some point. I would expect. Well, we'll find out. Make a note. Yeah, I'm going to suspend Robert's rules real quick. Monica, do you happen to know when the gas pumps and everything will be shut down at the marina?
I think it is the first week in November.
Okay,
Give me a minute and I'll confirm that.
thank you.
Hey, Doug, John Lake.
John,
if
go
I
right
could
ahead.
Yeah, I know you suspended Robert's rules. They've extended it for 2 weekends. They're going to try this. Ron is opening it. There was a community announcement that recently went out. So they're going to try 2 additional weekends in November where they would have been closed.
Okay.
And see how it works out. So you'll get it looks like 2 more weekends. I think they're just going to be weekends, Doug.
Okay. All right.
Don,
Noted. Thank you.
that's what I was looking for, that announcement. It will only be for the weekends in November.
Okay. All right. There we go. We have an answer then. Yeah, certainly. And that's obviously the zero revenue of those, in the winter months is a standard operating environment for us. Okay, any other questions on Marina? All right, next item is our reserve study. It looks like we are trending pretty well. Our balance right now is 8.5 million. I do like the report that we get every month from the treasurer that shows, where we're trending. It shows the spend out of the reserve accounts and the target for the end of the fiscal year. And I believe we'll get that information on Saturday, but for the past couple of reports, the months that the board's made that report, we're still trending to a level where, commensurate with what we need regarding the reserve accounts.
Do
Frank?
we have a percentage? That number?
Yeah.
What that is,
Yeah, that's
a
a
target percentage,
Right.
something on the way.
Yeah, for the new guys and folks listening in, so several years ago, actually, back when I was on the board, we passed a motion to try to get the reserve funding to a certain percentage over like 4 years. And John and his team have actually, I believe, exceeded what we had originally thought about getting to. I believe it was 24, 26%. I think John and his team now are up to probably at 30%, but that's a good, I overlooked that. So thank you, Frank. I'll ask John, our current balance in the reserve account is percentage of the
Based on the
asset
percentage
base.
of whatever.
Yeah. Okay,
We're
I'll get an
shooting for.
answer to that question. Okay, that's a good question. All right, anything else on reserves? Okay. And again, I don't mean to pick on the new guys, so don't take it wrong. Did I, and if I didn't, let me know. There was some guidance on the amount of money that can be moved every year from the reserve accounts, and also the balance, not to exceed balance that could be kept in the new capital reserve. Okay, so if you don't have that, just send me a reminder email, and I have that somewhere, and I'll send that to you, because that's important that, because one of the things is that, as they make contributions to that new capital reserve, and I know Frank will.
I don't recall exactly what the balance,
Yeah.
the contribution is each year. I've forgotten. I
There's
just
10%
did that
or
one,
something
what
like
it
that.
was.
But in years past, a history lesson was when people, when we'll call it the quote unquote administration back then, it was both the board and the admin, kept monies aside, and let's call it a slush fund. Remember that? Remember everybody was like, run around, it's a slush fund. And so, the board at the time when we were on it was, we wanted to kind of eliminate this concept of slush fund and put it more along the lines of, if we limit the amount of money that can be in there, we're prepared for, any maybe capital expense that comes up, a need that was, unanticipated, or even one that was planned, say 2 years from now, we're gonna need to do X. So we're gonna have to fund that new capital reserve, at a certain level so we can meet that expense requirement. So,
And this is calling this reserve accounts guidance.
yeah,
That'll.
Yeah.
Make you remember and send me something.
yes, you're welcome.
And others.
Okay, anything else on reserves? Okay. Under the capital summary, eyes back into the if you look back on reserve, you'll see the you can do the math on the spend. But I like this report. It shows the kinds of things that the reserve funding was spent on. So to date, it's 1.3 million, and it covers, obviously, seeing all the detailed items in there. Any questions on the spend on the capital side? Okay. Next item is the balance sheet. This is an interesting one. This is where and I will tell on myself, sometimes I need to be re-educated on some of the things, especially with the unappropriated equity. I want to make sure I totally understand, what contributes to that amount, unappropriated equity. And my question, and this is the one thing I'm gonna ask John and his finance team, is we have retained earnings all right, that were able to be realized after the audit. And the question is, where is that accounted for? And is that going, and it kind of leads into, is that also going to figure into the budget preparation for the FY 25-26 budget? I'm sure it will be. John's been consistent with that. He's done a great job in allocating the retained earnings from, the previous year's surplus, if you will, and allocated it accordingly throughout the operation. I expect that to happen again this year, but it's more just kind of an understanding of, where the retained earnings are reported. And again, that's just something, a very simple question that would ask John. He would certainly understand exactly what needs to be done there. So anything else on the balance sheet that we need to talk about? Oh, wait a minute. This one's from Don Roasting. He said, on the balance sheet, prepaid taxes is a negative $5,000. How? So that I will send that question over to John. Okay. And then, so any other questions on the balance sheet? All right, and then the next one obviously is the cash investments and so on and so forth, the whole CDRs we have. I have no question on that one. Don brought up a question for the current fiscal year. How much interest was received from the CDRs 5 months? So I'm sure we can, figure that out. But certainly I will forward that question. Well, again, it's just a matter of, information more than anything else.
What's the question?
Said for the current fiscal year, how much interest was received from the CDRs, in the 5 months we've had it? Yeah, and I'm guessing his comment is based on, what interest rate are we getting, on the CDRs and so on and so forth, and do we need to shop that around, especially with the changing market. Again, I'm always interested in when a new administration comes in at the federal level, is there anything that we need to, be thinking about, and the big picture items, like, interest income and those kinds of things. All right, any other questions on investments and the CDRs and so on and so forth? All right, the membership report is the last item on our standard report. Any questions on that one? All right. That in mind. All right, let's move over to the supplemental reports. Okay, supplemental reports. First one is golf operations. You guys, I sent you all that information. Any questions, comments on that one? My note here is that, again, year-to-date net ops is 75,000 higher than last year. If you look at the numbers. 101 versus, 108.7, so that's a good thing. Anything else on golf operations? All right, next item is golf maintenance. So it's only an expense item. This one's, I tell you, I really like looking at a number and trying to figure out, how it got to that point. If you look at the expense, total expenses, for especially on the net operating side, it's like the budget was 424,000, but the actuals were 391. Okay, and last year the year-to-date actuals were 405. So you're talking about, between this time last year and today, about $14,000 difference in net operating. And the question is, is that, again, is that a level of efficiency that's happening? Is that services and supplies went down significantly from year to date last year? If you look at that, you're looking at 127 versus it was 147 at this time last year. So that's a 20K decrease in services and supplies. The other numbers are fairly consistent with the previous year, but I always wonder what that's, is it getting a better discount on on the supplies and so on and so forth, maybe a different vendor,
Or maybe Maintenance that's not happening, if the wages are down.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting comment, Randy. I would offer that if the maintenance was down, then how is the golf course doing as well as it's doing from a, yeah, I mean, yeah, your point is well taken. Or maybe said another way, the maintenance that was needed to get the golf course in this shape is no longer needed. Now you're just kind of maintaining. So the idea is you had to put some level of effort to get it to this level. And then at that point, it's far less from a cost perspective to just maintain that environment. So that could be one of the two.
Frank, how about that, except that the wages versus actual versus monthly.
Yeah, that's true. It's down 8 grand.
And then they were having a good bit of trouble getting help.
So there's.
And this season, so they were having trouble getting help, the wages would be lower. Can't hire the guys that they want to hire.
Yeah.
We were having problems with our sand traps. And, the explanation was that we couldn't get enough help to edge the traps properly to get the sand in them to make them.
Yeah. Have you been in the sand a number of times?
Oh, I'm saying all. In is no problem.
Yeah,
Out is.
yeah. You're right. The edging around the trap is starting to get a little shaky, but
It's getting much better.
Yeah.
We're finally catching up on that.
okay. Yeah. Any other questions on their golf maintenance? All right. Next report was rec and parks. This one, I won't call it concern, just if you notice, again, you notice that I tend to focus on year-to-date numbers. And if the year-to-date numbers are, significantly different, then I dive into the detail on the back end. But if you look, net op is about $34,000 worse than last year at this time. The question is, 34K, is that something that would generate a need to make any changes? I don't know. Probably not, but, I wonder if there's any fine tuning that needs to, go in there, especially if you look at on the revenue side on special events. Yeah, they were budgeted $1,500 and the month actual was $11,190. I mean, so, so that's on the good side. The month actuals, the wages were actually down a little bit, but services and supplies were up. So, again, I think it's all over the place. Again, it goes back on the expense side to the other costs. They budgeted 87 and the actuals were 32,146. So, that's a $23,000 difference. And the question is, again, is it another timing issue? Did John take delivery of something, or John and his team take delivery of something, that that had been back ordered and they went ahead and paid the invoice and so on and so forth. So I'm sure there's plenty of explanation, but, the only thing I would note that, I would offer to, ask a question, is there anything there that, we should be, or anybody should be concerned about with that, big difference or somewhat difference in the, net op between last year to date, and this year to date? So. Okay. Are there any other questions on the Rec and Parks one? All right. So then the last set of reports are the P&Ls from, okay, it's right here. From the Manor Company P&Ls. All right, everybody looking at that one too. Take the first one is the clubhouse. And my note here, as it is on, I had to laugh when I wrote this, but on par with last year. Sorry for the pun. But no significant differences between last year and this year. If you look at their P&L sheet, especially on the net income side. Any questions on the clubhouse report? Okay. So nobody really laughed at my pun, which is good. Okay. The next item on the report is the beach club. Any comments, questions on that one? I made a note that it's 30K better than last year. Yeah. Year to date, 30K, it's 312 from 282. So, again, just, and again, just thinking through, is that more visitors? The parking was up, right? If you remember, we talked about the beach parking room, so maybe more people are there, maybe more people, are going to the beach club, and obviously it shows up here. Okay, any other questions on the beach club? All right. This one is the yacht club. Yeah, if you look at that, I think it's consistent with what we've already seen, although my notes here, the year-to-date expenses were actually slightly lower than they were last year, okay? And the net revenue for this month are slightly higher than the same period last year. But overall, we're down that 120K on the revenue side and 70K year-to-date in the net income side. So again, is that something that is just one of the things that I've heard is that across the board, Ocean City, everybody's food and beverage operations were off by a fairly significant amount this year. Other vendors have reported, and it's been in the news that revenue on that particular aspect of whether it's hotel, whether it's a restaurant, bar, and so on and so forth, we're down. And I'm just wondering if we are also for lack of a better term, victim of that particular downturn. Don't know, but clearly it's something that just may be a symptom of the overall environment here. In this area, in the Ocean City, Ocean Pines, and surrounding areas. But just my opinion. Anything else on the outlook? Yeah, it should be. Yeah. I think that it's a good point you just made, Randy. It should be noted that they're still profitable. And depreciation aside, that if you simple math, you made $200,000 last year, but you make $100,000 this year. You didn't lose $100,000. You're still $100,000 to the good. All right. Now, are you performing at the same level that you did in the previous year? No. Okay. So there's other factors. So I've actually heard people say, well, they're losing money. Well, they're not making as much money as they did before. I don't know if you have to explain that to somebody, but again, across the board, I think that's happening everywhere.
I just see that, revenue down, it's over the expenses, so they're obviously thinking about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, anything else on the yacht club? Okay. Then seeing that we've been through all of the reports, I have a couple of questions that I will forward to John and the finance team. I'm gonna go over them real quick. One of them would be the balance sheet, which is the prepaid taxes of -$5,000. Okay. Second one is how much interest was received on the CDRs. The third one is what percentage now is the reserve balance. The fourth one is what is the 82K overage and other costs on the yacht club side. Those are the four. Those are the four questions I am going to take forward to John and the finance team. Anything we forgot, Bob?
No, a question I have, is there any place in the reports where they show head count actual to budget?
That's not included in the reports. It's included in the budget prep process. All right. Meaning that we get, when we review and the board as well reviews the budget for the upcoming year, they do have head counts with regard to employee, both full and part-time. But as far as month to month, that isn't something that the committee has kind of looked at and felt that it's more an operational issue than anything that doesn't have anything to do with really the numbers. It has more to do with the actual functioning, of the operation. So that's something, the basis of your question is.
Pardon me?
So the basis of your question is what were you hoping to find out? Maybe is another way we can look at it?
Well, what I was looking at is the variance in expenses for salaries and benefits.
I got you.
Again, where I came from, headcount was extremely important. And we used to monitor that to look at it.
All right, well, yeah, no.
And, because sometimes you have excessive overtime to cover up for the shortage of headcount. It makes it kind of obvious. Yeah, they're short 3 people, so it makes sense. You got overtime.
All right, I will add that to our list of questions. Okay. All right, anything, since we reviewed, so I'll add that to the questions. The next item on the agenda is other comments and questions, so Bob, I will add that to our list of questions, so we'll have 5 that go to that. I have one, we actually have a, application for another committee member. So, I will forward this information to you guys, and, I guess one of the things this is more philosophical than anything else. I like the idea of somebody else other than the chair talking to a potential candidate for for the committee. Meaning that based on my background, I know a lot of people, so I might not ask the same kinds of questions that one of you guys would ask, not knowing an individual. Because I know this individual coming in, I certainly have no issue with it. But what I'd like to do, if you guys are amenable to it, would be to have one of you guys, give this individual a call and just kind of, walk through any questions you may have about their desire to be on the committee. And I think that kind of ties in, rather than me just saying, this individual, I know him or her, I like him or her, I'm recommending him or her, and it kind of looks rubber stamped, and I kind of try to stay away from that as much as possible. So the idea would be, just think about it. I'll shoot an email out to you guys, later today or first thing tomorrow. And then, we'll need to get, that, assuming we, are supporting adding this individual, to the committee, then we can get it on the agenda for the board meeting. And the board can, choose to approve or disapprove, adding another member to this committee. Is that okay? All right. All right. Any other questions, comments? Floor is open for you guys. Don Bonafide, anything from you?
Nope, everything's good.
Okay. Frank, Bob, Randy? Okay, seeing none, last item on the agenda is I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second? Second. All in favor?
All right.
I'm gonna assume nobody's opposed. How's that? Thanks, everyone.